Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 336 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the LA Dodgers winning the World Series. The Dodgers have won the 2024 World Series, beating the New York Yankees in 5 games. It's the 8th World Series title for the franchise, and their second this decade. The first was in 2020. So look, when a team like the Dodgers wins, it's no surprise. They are a well-run organization with the highest payroll, and their prize free agent Shohei Ohtani hit 54 home runs and stole 59 bases during the regular season. But when the playoffs began, there were a lot of people down on the Dodgers' chances because of the state of their pitching staff. Tyler Glasnow was lost for the season, as was Clayton Kershaw. There were 2 big postseason heroes for the Dodgers, and the first one was a bit of a surprise: utility player Kike Hernandez, who is one of those role players who brings his game to another level. For his career, he has 15 postseason home runs. Hernandez was a .229 hitter during the regular season and a .294 hitter during the postseason. The other hero is an obvious one: first baseman Freddie Freeman, who won World Series MVP, hitting 4 home runs, including a walk-off grand slam in Game 1. The one big observation I have about the Dodgers winning is it shows how starting pitching isn't a necessity anymore in the playoffs as it used to be. There was a time not that long ago that in order to win it all, you needed 3 reliable starting pitchers. The last time the Yankees won the World Series, they had CC Sabathia, Andy Pettitte, and AJ Burnett. What really bothered me about the Dodgers was Game 4. The one game they lost in the series was a bullpen game. They didn't even throw out a starting pitcher in that game. And that was clearly going to be a game that the Yankees could come back in the series for. So it's not like the Dodgers not going with a starting pitcher was a good idea. As it turned out, it ended up being the one game they lost. And don't give me that this was the Dodgers' master plan in the first place. I thought it was embarrassing for the Dodgers that they went with a bullpen game in Game 4, and I thought it was embarrassing for the sport. I mean, this is baseball's biggest stage. 2 of their richest franchises, the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees. These are teams that have had some of the greatest starting pitchers of all time. And in Game 4 of the World Series, one of the teams throws out a bullpen reliever that basically no one has ever heard of. And I get it, it's not 1975. There's not going to be a starting pitcher who throws 7 or 8 innings in a World Series game anymore. I'm not that naive. But you can throw out a guy who can give you 4 or 5 innings in a game at least. Make the starting pitcher matter again. That's what the sport needs to do. And I know it's not the Dodgers' problem. They shouldn't care about how they use starting pitching, but it would be good for the overall sport if they stop things like that from happening ever again. You cannot have a bullpen game in Game 4 of the World Series where you're getting the largest audience of the year. That's when you want the best starting pitchers to be pitching. Do you know what it felt like? It felt like the best team in the sport telling you how they feel about starting pitching, that they don't care about it. Yes, I know that the Dodgers got good starting pitching from Jack Flaherty at times, and Yamamoto was very good during the postseason. But Game 4, with the potential to sweep, is when you should put a good young arm out there. For example, in 2007, the Red Sox swept the Colorado Rockies, and in that Game 4, they handed the ball to a young lefty named Jon Lester. Jon Lester then ended up becoming one of the pitchers that I consider to be one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. He is a big game pitcher, and you can't tell me that him pitching in that Game 4 did not build him up towards being that. My frustration is the Dodgers couldn't even pick a young pitcher to hand the ball off to in Game 4 to give him an opportunity to develop as a younger pitcher. I mean, that's my issue, is that that's not even what the postseason is anymore. It's let's have a bullpen game so we can save up our really good, already developed pitchers for Game 5. That's kind of sad, if I do say so myself. That's not how I want the sport of baseball to be viewed moving forward. I want starting pitching to matter, and Game 4 was symbolically the Dodgers saying it doesn't matter. Absolutely no one believes this is the end of the Dodgers winning. We all think they're going to make big moves this offseason, but how big are those moves going to be? Are they going to end up with Yankees outfielder Juan Soto? I mean, that would be insane. I talked about that a bit last week on the podcast. Are the Dodgers going to be in on Pete Alonso? Are they going to bring back their own free agent outfielder, Teoscar Hernandez? I mean, the Dodgers have unlimited resources. I believe what the Dodgers should do is invest in their pitching staff. You don't know what you're going to get out of Tyler Glasnow next season. We all believe that Clayton Kershaw is going to be coming back, but he's not the same Clayton Kershaw of old. The Dodgers need a much better pitching staff. Offensively, the team is stacked. I mean, they have Shohei Ohtani, they have Mookie Betts, and they have Freddie Freeman. I think the most intriguing thing about the Dodgers next season is, are they going to allow Ohtani to pitch? I mean, he hit 54 home runs as a DH. Are you really going to sacrifice his stellar offensive play for him to become a starting pitcher again? It's going to be really interesting to see what path the Dodgers choose, because that really could change how the Dodgers operate next season. Let's say Shohei Ohtani goes back to being a pitcher and then re-injures himself and then can't even hit anymore. I mean, how are the Dodgers going to react? I mean, it's going to be a real issue moving forward if they try to make him a starting pitcher and it doesn't work out. For that very reason, I would keep Ohtani as an offensive player, and for my pitching, I would go after Corbin Burnes or Blake Snell. I don't think it's an accident that Ohtani had his best offensive season in a year where he didn't have to pitch. I mean, clearly, I believe Ohtani is a more valuable player when he's playing every day, hitting 50 homers, stealing 50 bases, than he is as a starting pitcher. I know we all love the fact that he can do both, but I believe he's a better offensive player than he is a pitcher. And the Dodgers should keep him as a DH. He should not be a starting pitcher next year, but they gave him $700 million, so they're probably going to try to make him a starting pitcher once again. And I can't say that I blame him. When you give a guy that much money and he's multi-talented like Ohtani, that's what you're going to do. I just think it's going to be a bit of a risk for the Dodgers to try to pull that off. I mean, they were rewarded with a World Series. The guy hit 50 homers, stole 50 bases. Isn't that worth $700 million anyways? Like, does Ohtani really have to be a starting pitcher ever again? I want to take a moment or two to talk about one of my favorite players, Dodgers outfielder Mookie Betts, who started the season as your shortstop and then went back into the outfield. Mookie Betts has now won 3 World Series. That's tied for the most for an active MLB player. Mookie Betts is one of the best players in the sport, and I feel like sometimes he's not mentioned as such. I think he's almost just as good as Aaron Judge. He's just as good as Juan Soto. He is a top 5 player in this game, and since he went to the Dodgers, they have won the World Series twice. It is one of the biggest crimes in Red Sox history that they let Mookie Betts go. He is a generational talent, one of the sport's best defensive players, and one of the sport's best offensive players. Betts is one of those rare superstar players who now has World Series titles with multiple teams. He, of course, won a World Series in 2018 as a member of the Boston Red Sox, and now has 2 World Series titles with the Dodgers. I believe when all said and done, Mookie Betts will be remembered as one of the sport's biggest winners. I mean, when you think about winning right now, you think about Derek Jeter. But if Mookie Betts ends his career winning, let's say, 6 World Series titles, he will be viewed in that same light. When we think of winning in the postseason, we will think of Mookie Betts. Now, what Mookie Betts doesn't have, that Derek Jeter does have, is stellar stats in the postseason. Mookie Betts has kind of been up and down during the postseason. He was very good this past postseason with the Dodgers. He really helped them win this World Series title, but he wasn't that much of a factor in 2018 or in 2020. But let's be honest, nobody's going to go back and look at his actual stats. They're going to look at how many titles he ends up winning, and if he stays with the Dodgers, that number of World Series titles is going to continue to increase for Mookie Betts. Let's have a dynasty talk. Would it be good for the sport of baseball if the Dodgers really do emerge as a dynasty? I mean, they are one of those franchises that everyone cares about. You can't talk about the history of the sport without mentioning the LA Dodgers. But what we also love is parity. I loved that last season the Texas Rangers of all teams came out of nowhere and won the World Series. But then again, baseball was super popular in the 1990s when the Yankees and even the Braves were dominating the sport. It's good for us to root against a team. I mean, it makes you feel better about your team when they beat that team that everyone's rooting against. The issue that most people have with the Dodgers is how much more money they have than the baseball team that you root for. Even my Boston Red Sox, they're not the high-spending team that they used to be. They're not going to sign a guy to a 10-year, $400 million deal. And the Dodgers are going to do that, and then they're going to sign another guy to a 10-year, $700 million deal. I mean, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the Dodgers, a team that, like I said earlier, has unlimited resources and are going to use it. For some, their payroll will be viewed as an unfair advantage, but others will say they are owned by ownership who are willing to spend a boatload of money to make their team better, and that's a good thing. And I am in agreement with that. I mean, the Red Sox are getting dissed left and right because their ownership group, led by John Henry, is not spending the amount of money that they used to. And the Yankee fans are going to rip Hal Steinbrenner if they don't re-sign Juan Soto. Fan bases want their team to spend money. So if you're a fan of the Dodgers, you are absolutely loving what they are doing lately because they are putting their money back into the team to win as much titles as they can. It's like what the Golden State Warriors were doing when they had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant. As long as you're winning, we're going to put money into the product, and that's what fans want to see. Now, this might be a me thing, but I just love it when the most dominant team is developed with homegrown talent. Like what was so great about the Yankees of the 90s are that they had Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, and Mariano Rivera. All players who were developed by that organization. The Dodgers did not develop Mookie Betts. They traded for Mookie Betts. They did not develop Freddie Freeman. They signed him as a free agent. The Braves of the 90s developed Chipper Jones, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine. Yes, they got in and they brought Greg Maddux, but that wasn't a team that was built on free agency. The Dodgers are a team that have been built from outside of the organization, and personally, I like it more when the best team in the sport is homegrown by that team. And look, I get it, that's nitpicking on the highest level, but that's what I get to do as a fan of the sport. Like, I love the fact that in 2007, the Red Sox were winning with homegrown talent, the likes of Jacoby Ellsbury and Dustin Pedroia. You felt good about the future because those guys were developing. I mean, the Dodgers' run is going to be great, but they don't have forever. I mean, Mookie Betts is going to get older. Freddie Freeman is up there. Clayton Kershaw is near retirement, so something I wonder about the future of the Dodgers are they going to be an organization that still develops young talent? Because that's what the Dodgers used to be known for. It felt like every year they were developing the next rookie of the year. I don't know. I just find it easier to root for a team when they developed homegrown talent. You're like, yes, you guys have put in effort to make these guys into superstars. I don't know. I feel differently about a team that just buys a lot of talented players. Now, I give the Dodgers a lot of credit. They have picked the right players, and this style has failed so many teams. I mean, in the mid-2000s, the Yankees were losing left and right and were signing a bunch of outside players like Jason Giambi and Gary Sheffield, and they weren't winning at all. And the Dodgers are, and I have to give them credit for that. They have built an organization from the outside, and they are winning at the highest of levels, and that is rare to see in the sport of baseball. But I would like to see them grow some more talent from the inside. I would love to see them develop another Rookie of the Year type player to go along with their established stars. In the future, in the National League, you're just wondering who is going to be able to keep up with the Dodgers. Are the Phillies going to continue to spend a boatload of money like they are? I mean, they have Bryce Harper, they have Trey Turner, but is that a team that's ever going to really get there? I know that they've been to the World Series. They've been a really good team the last few years. Kyle Schwarber was a great addition, but I feel like the Phillies have kind of peaked. I mean, what else can the Phillies do? Are they going to be in on Juan Soto? I mean, nobody's talking about the Phillies when it comes to Soto because they already have Bryce Harper. They've already spent a lot of money on that team. I wonder if the New York Mets are going to continue to build off of their goodwill of this past season. Now, they might lose Pete Alonso, and that would change how I feel about that team entirely. It's also just crazy to think about the fact that the Dodgers might be even better next season if they get a fully healthy season from Tyler Glasnow. If Clayton Kershaw is able to pitch like his old self and remain a member of the team, I mean, their pitching staff could improve. I mean, they have the guys on the roster. They just weren't healthy by season's end. And not to mention that they could go out and get like a Blake Snell or Corbin Burns, like I talked about earlier. Last year was one of the first seasons in a while where the LA Dodgers did not win 100 wins during the regular season. I mean, the Dodgers were not the juggernaut we all expected them to be during the offseason, but they eventually became that because they have so much talent on their roster, so much more talent than everyone else. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Like the next 5 years could end up being remembered as the Dodger years. I mean, would anyone be surprised if they win 3 more World Series in the next 5 years? They're going to have Ohtani, they're going to have Mookie Betts, they're going to have Freddie Freeman, and they're going to have some other big free agent moves that they go out and get. The Dodgers are going to continue to be not only the kings of the National League West, but the kings of the National League and possibly the kings of the sport overall. I do find myself being fond of the Dodgers. I like the way that they run that team. I like the way that they hire a manager in Dave Roberts and they believe in him. I mean, there have been years where they didn't win the World Series, where they had huge expectations and they didn't fire the manager because they believe in Dave Roberts. He's their guy and they want consistency in the organization. I like the fact that they have kept Clayton Kershaw around. He's one of their best pitchers in franchise history, and he continues to be one of the faces of the franchise. Even if he's just a figurehead, he's worth keeping around. It is one thing to say we need to add a superstar. It's another thing to add the right superstars, and the Dodgers have done just that. Mookie Betts was the right superstar. Freddie Freeman was the right superstar. And yeah, it's hard to give them credit for going after Shohei Ohtani, but I'm going to give them a bit of a credit because I didn't think Shohei Ohtani was going to hit 50 homers and steal 50 bases. He was better with the Dodgers than even I ever could have imagined, and I had big expectations on him as well, but he was just far better than those expectations. It doesn't get me upset to see the Dodgers have this huge level of success because I do believe they are an organization that has earned it. They have done things the right way. They have been consistent. They haven't had off years. They have put a competitive product on the field year in and year out. And when a team does that, I have nothing against them. I wish them no ill will. They deserve to have all the success in the world. And if they continue to do all those same things, they will continue to have all the success in the world. The Dodgers are not only super good, they're also super entertaining. I mean, come on. Watching a guy hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of the World Series is super cool. So if that's the type of product they're putting onto the field, then sign me up for more Dodger baseball. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.